Welcome, everyone, to Voices of Art interviews with master artists. And I have the pleasure of interviewing my friend for I don't know how long we've known. Well,
I don't.
I know when we met. Okay, so and I'm going to save that for a minute.
Okay.
Aleathia Brown, how are you, my sister?
I'm at peace and in a Zen space, which is a beautiful moment. So thank you
Oh,
for
that's
having
so
me at the right
wonderful.
time.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where were you raised? What day school did you go to as a
Mm,
child?
mm. So I claim Harlem as my I guess my lineage. My mother is Harlem. I'm second, third generation, something like that. Harlem. Grew up between Bronx and Harlem. Still reside in the Bronx, but everything and keys are still in Harlem for one reason or another, from family to business. And so I've always done this zigzag pattern throughout. So I went to a nursery school in East River Houses Plaza, where I grew up, and Catholic school, a block or two from that nursery school, was where I started first grade with a cast on my leg at 5, limping up a flight of steps, and mom meeting me every day for lunch until the cast came off. So that's my journey, starting with a struggle and a triumph, because I refused to not go to school because she said, we can hold it off a little bit until your leg is. I was like, nope, I want to start when everybody else does. So
Oh, that's so beautiful. And so once you finished nursery school or kindergarten, first grade, where did you go for grammar school? Did you call it
so
grammar school here in New York?
we did at that time, and then it's changed and transformed over the years. But elementary school is what I primarily called it. We
Mhm.
migrated from Harlem to the Bronx when I was in 4th grade. So our last year going to school in elementary school was in Harlem in the 3rd grade, and then we moved to the Bronx. So my grandmother lived up the street from where Diallo was massacred, and so we started going to PS 77 over by
Mhm.
Monroe High School. Then we moved to Noble right off the Cross Bronx, and we started going to a public school in that area. And then I zigzagged back to Harlem when I went to music and art, when it was on Convent and 135th. So like I said, my whole life has been this balancing act between Harlem and the Bronx, literally the whole entire journey that I've been breathing.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
So what was music and art like?
Wow. It's so funny because when I was in 6th grade, there was a family that lived over me that was all musical and artsy. And the two brothers went to music and art. And that's how I first heard of music and art. I would see them walking through the parking lot from the terrace with these portfolios and all of
Mhm.
these interesting friends coming over to the house, having jam sessions over my head. And I was just fascinated. And so they took me under their wings. That's the Hodges. Shout outs to the Hodges. And so when I heard about music and art, I had a fixation that that's where I was going. No question, no doubt. I took the test for art and design, but the energy in that space didn't speak to my spirit. In music and art at the time, they had the old wood, fixtures in the lobby and a sculpture on a pedestal, and it was dimly lit and just very much like a cathedral in this old school with the organs in the auditorium. So for me, I said that was home. That was where my soul was belonging. And I'd already been friendly with all of the seniors, juniors, and sophomores who would come to the building to visit the two brothers. And by the time
Wow.
I got into music and art, I was like the little sister. So I actually sat at the table in the lunchroom with the seniors and the juniors. I didn't really hang out with my class until the following year. So I kind of had that sort of welcoming that, into that whole ambiance. And being in music and art at that time, coming in the ninth grade was different than coming in the 10th grade, because you had 4 full years to really hone in on whatever your voice was in whatever art form. So we had the luxury of having, you can switch back and forth either as a music or an art major. So you had any number of people kind of multitasking and singing through the hallways. It was just like the movie Fame. Like, you really saw that happening on a regular basis. So it
Wow.
was very live, very creative, very unending. So yeah, that was like a
Nice.
normal day.
Oh, I love it. So when did you realize you wanted to be an artist?
I came here as one. There was no realize. It was, I came on this planet, I'm an artist. Period. At 3, I'm an artist.
Nice, nice, nice.
So
So you went to uh you went to music and art knowing that
mhm,
that's
that
who
was
you
it.
are.
Yeah, listen, when I took the test to get into art and design, they had this lockdown that you come into the room, they locked the room, and they had the person kind of overseeing, the proctor overseeing you taking the test. I sat there like this and I said, I am not going here. And they were like, that's a little arrogant. You don't know if you're going to get into music and art. You know, the chances of getting in there, you might as well try. I was like, that's where my soul is going to be. And I'll come back here and show you the note when I get in. And I did. I actually got in. I still have that note to this day. But I actually went back and showed the security guard and the proctor, and they was like, wow. So I was
Oh my
determined.
goodness.
I
Oh
was
my
determined.
goodness.
Even when I took the drawing test in music and art, Miss Risa was one of my drawing teachers, but she was one of the proctors. I still remembered her to this day because she was always yelling. She was a yeller. But with me, she could yell at somebody next to me and then, hey, baby, and just go into that whole other voice with me. And I don't know what that was, but for some reason, she said, you're a very determined young lady. I rarely see people like you. You'd be an asset to this school. And I just, that's how I stayed in that kind of zane, like lane.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. So did you know what type of art or what medium you wanted to work in?
I still don't claim that one thing because I say artist, period, because that means my channels, my antennas is open for every and anything creative. It could be poetry, it could be photography, it could be sculpture, it could be painting. I did it all, so I didn't want anyone to pigeonhole me into, well, specializing in art. I'm an artist, period.
Mhm.
So for
Nice.
me, learn all the things, even going into college and taking after school programs at Parsons and doing all these other things that I did all the 4 years that I was at music and art. I was going to school 6 days a week. On Saturdays, I would go to Parsons, do commercial art and music and art. I was doing fine art, and, printmaking, painting, sculpture. So like my feet were planted on all the different portals I could. There was no such thing as me not. In fact, let me go back. In junior high school, I was one of the first 3 who did this whole protest resistance when they had shop classes and girls weren't allowed in. So we protested to get into wood and metal shop because that wasn't allowed. You had to do home economics and all these other girly things. And I was like, what? So no thank you. And I was one of the first 3 that got into an all male workshop in junior high school. So I was already with a cause and like, oh, you're not going to pigeonhole me. I want to learn these things. So here I am.
Where did that come from?
My mother, she's still like that to this day. God bless her. I know she's probably on here watching, but that warrior, that fight, that you're not gonna tell me or define me, she is that. So even just watching her do that with the community prowess that she had in the neighborhood and turning the building around. We had the best building in the projects because we could unlock our doors on weekends and go from floor to floor. We had parties on the different floors at holidays. Listen, my mother is still like that and retired and lives in Florida, and she's still paving new sidewalks, having buses routed, and had a hospital built. Like, yeah, that those
I love
roots
it. I
or
love
in the
it.
DNA.
I love it. So when you left high school, when you left music and art, did you go to a college?
Yeah, I went to SVA, and well, I went on a journey because going through some family tragedies in the last 2 years of my high school, my grades went down and it was a lot of drama. So I had to do a lot of makeup. But I went to Bronx Community College and I did liberal arts, fine arts, and I was doing printmaking and sculpture and all of that there. Damaged my hand. That's why my fingers look like this now. Got splattered with some nitric acid in a printmaking class. Like I got war wounds here. So,
I hear
but
you.
I went through all of the channels because I was like, oh no, I'm going where I want to go. And I wanted to go to SVA. You know why? Because I saw a zebra on the ad. Why dream of being mediocre when you can have greatness? That was the campaign. And they had this rainbow zebra on the buses and trains. And I was like, I have a thing about zebras. And I was like, oh, greatness. I knew I was here for greatness. I knew that at 8 because that was like a voice that came to me. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to follow that path. And it took me 3 attempts to get into SVA. And even the counselor said to me, I've never seen anybody so determined. Every school I've ever gotten into, that's usually what people would say. Because I was like, oh no, there's not going to be a B, C, D choice. This is what I want. I'm going to keep coming until I get it.
Was Dr. Jeffries there then when you went?
She was there, like I think it's second years when I started hearing about her because I didn't know who she was at first, but I would hear her classes would always be full and I could
Mm.
never get in. I couldn't even get permission to come in as just somebody to stand on the sidelines. And yeah, it was kind of interesting how that went.
Yeah, yeah. So what was SVA like? Was it any different from school, from art and design? No,
Music and art.
music and art. Thank you.
Yes, because music and art nurtured you. It didn't matter what you were, who you were, where you came from. A lot of the teachers were alumni from the school, so it was a different camaraderie there. My real bouts with racism was in SVA. Like I had a teacher told another student when he wouldn't critique my work that I was mediocre and I wouldn't amount to much of anything. So my work wasn't even worthy of critiquing. And then I had another teacher told me he wanted to hurl me out of a window. So in front of a whole class. So it's just I had some real serious bouts with it. I had a comp marker class where the teacher had everybody doing these marker comps for advertising, and they were always Caucasian people. And I we had to bring magazines as reference drawings. I had only met black magazines, and she was like, "Well, if you're gonna work in the advertising agencies and you get a client that's Caucasian." I said, "Oh, I could do a Caucasian complexion. When you start doing black folk skin and not just doing it in that gray muted taupe color, then we can talk." And she was like clutching her pearls, like, how dare I talk like that to her? But she pulls out some markers and starts trying to do a demo and did the typical afro. I was like, "Excuse me, I don't have an afro and I'm not only one shade." And she said I bumped into her on the Metro North train when I moved to Yonkers. We were living in Yonkers my first year there. And I saw her on my commute home and she said, every 10 years I come along a student like you and I looked you up. You really do have a background in the fundamentals of drawing and painting. And rarely do I see that in some of these classes that are more commercial based. But I do have to say, you made me have to look at myself in a way that I didn't imagine or realize because she thought she knew a thing or two about our complexion, and then I wound up taking over that class for those kinds of drawing sessions when we had to do brown folks. I was like, in my family alone there's at least 9 different shades of brown. Don't assume we're one shade and that we have one texture of hair and
Hmm.
that we all wear it in an afro. It was just I was always
Nice.
having to re-educate and
Hmm.
reinform. And most of the time, I was one of 3 blacks, sometimes the only female and black in most of my classes. So yeah, it
Wow.
was an interesting ride. It gave
Did you
me
stay?
my
Did
strength.
you stay the 4 years
Yes,
there?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All
Yes,
right
ma'am.
now. All right. Yeah. You're
Hmm.
probably, I think I've spoken to a couple of people recently who went to SVA. And
Hmm.
and they've had similar experiences, but at the same time,
Mhm.
they learned the rules
Mm,
of
mhm.
art so that
Mhm.
they could be comfortable in breaking them. And that's what I try to
Yes.
tell artists: learn
Yes.
the rules,
Mhm.
the fundamentals of it
Mhm.
all, so that you
Mhm.
can break them.
Yes. Yes.
Um, wow.
Absolutely.
So when you left there, what did you say you were going to do?
What actually launched in my head was that teacher in SVA telling me that I was mediocre. I literally took the assignment we were doing in that class and launched Alethia's original artwork and named it that because of him, even to the point, and this was 2 years afterwards. So when I launched again, it was the same racism coming out of school as was in school. So it was like a preparation. Try to go into Soho or Chelsea with your black self and a portfolio and see how far you get, especially in the 80s. So I had to make me a world. Right. And so I said I wasn't going to do the portfolio hustle and show up places that I knew people were already going to deny me because of my color, my whatever. So I started doing, in the non-traditional sense, I started doing exhibitions. My first exhibition outdoors was at a street fair on Amsterdam and 99th Street. So I started putting my art from that assignment. In fact, we had to do a line of playing cards with a theme, and my theme was Africa. So I did all this research and I had all these elements to it, from royalty to peasants and combining cultures, and had a whole bunch of whatever. And I took that, put it on a line of clothing. And then I launched Alethia's original artworks May 9th, 1989. And the printer that I was going to was up in Asening. And he said to me, you know, you should put the date on this because 20 years from now, you're going to really want to mark this as a moment and save a few in your archives. And when I got to Harlem to do my studio with Chashama, they gave me an opportunity to have a pop up. And the day I was unlocking the door to my pop up gallery, I realized that was the night before the 20th anniversary of me launching Alethia's original artworks. But what I did with that first largest check that I made off of doing the street fairs, I came back to SVA and I walked into that teacher's class. He didn't see me coming in the room because he was doing a lecture. And I put the check on the desk and slid it towards him and said, "This is the check for the mediocre work you said would never amount to anything. I launched my business and people are paying me for the work that you wouldn't even blah, blah, blah." And I said to the rest of the class, and this is so you never let another teacher or soul define you. You be who you are. And I walked out. When I went down the hall to the head of the department, who was his best friend, he was like, "Touche, my sister, you got the last word." And that man never gives anybody the opportunity for the last word. I just heard what you did.
Wow.
So it was, this
Wow.
journey has always been like, instead of being downtrodden about the racism, I was like, oh really? Hmm. So
Wow. SVA is School of Visual Arts. I
mhm.
believe Abimbola asked that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I'm really for those of you out there, I've had the pleasure of seeing those cards. Um, and I don't have any of those images. So that means you're going to have to get in touch with Aleathia afterwards to see if you can even buy one of the prints, because
Mhm.
she has also put them. She's printed them on paper,
Mhm.
which I'm a lover of those images. And I didn't even think to ask you to send me those. So, so wow, okay. So now you have, okay, so let me tell everyone where I met you. I went to I was asked to come to City College. I don't think I've said that out, said it, I told that story of how I got to Harlem. I'm in Brooklyn, of
Mhm.
course.
Mhm.
And I got a call and they wanted someone there who could be not of not of Harlem, so that I could bring some of the artists from Harlem to the college.
Mm.
And because there's so many great artists in Harlem that they didn't know who to choose. So I'm gonna be safe and say that. Right? So they
Politically correct.
yes. So they called me, asked me to come, and and I said I thought about it because I hadn't worked outside of the center that my husband and I have in Brooklyn, and so I just hadn't, and so I ended up going, and I met you at, oh my goodness, I think it was either the mayor's mansion or the governor's mansion. It was somebody.
Oh
It was
yes.
for
Y-
Harlem.
Yeah, Harlem Week. Yeah, the mayor's mansion, Gracie
Yeah, the
Mansion.
mayor's mansion, and you came
Mhm.
over to me, and I said, "Wow, look at these sisters." It was not just you. It was
Right, it's a few
a
of us, like six or
yeah,
seven
and
of
you
us.
all
Yeah.
had I mean, you all look so beautiful.
Thank you.
And you came and you really treated me very nice. And I went there and I was doing things at the college, and then we met, and that's how we ended up
Mm,
connecting, and
mm-hmm.
we've been connecting ever since.
Ever since, so
Yes,
that's got to be about 10 years,
at
something like
least,
that.
at
Yeah.
least. I think I
Hmm.
left City College in 2004 or
Okay.
5 or something. I don't, it was, yeah,
Time is just jumping to
yeah.
me.
But so anyway, you have an organization
Hmm.
that was it you that created it
Hmm.
for
Yep.
women
Yep. The
that
bareheaded
chose
men and
to,
women. Hmm.
yeah, that choose to wear their hair bare
Hmm.
or not, which
Right.
I think is really a wonderful idea as well, because
Hmm.
it can serve as a metaphor as well, the
Yes.
word.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
can you tell us just a little bit about that before we get into the
Hmm.
showing your
Yeah.
work?
So it's Unveiled Unlocked is the name of my initiative, and it's to celebrate and illuminate the barehead men and women, because we have both in the collective, who either by lifestyle choose to cut their hair semi or fully, or for those who have lost their hair to health issues, alopecia, lupus, cancer. There are different medical reasons that people didn't have the choice.
Mhm.
So it ironically lined itself up that a lot of us in the collective are artists. So what better way to use a healing modality than through the arts, which was what I always pair together, because my voice is art and I know it's a healing. So why not put both of those two together, because there's such a stigma around beauty. And if
Mhm.
beauty is art, then let's illuminate it in a way that's not being talked about, or where there's shame being put on something that makes no sense, because in other cultures it is celebrated and illuminated as a powerful thing. So I wanted to change the name from bald to bare, because when I looked up in the dictionary, bald meant sick and not in control, and I was like, I'm neither. And even for those who were sick, you are in control when you embrace and accept. So
Mhm.
so we celebrate in art forms of different mediums as well. So this is coming on our 10th anniversary this summer. So we're actually going to
Nice,
do some big celebrations around that as well.
nice, nice. Yeah. And I've watched you do so many things, you and the women and men that you work with. And I've
Hmm.
had the opportunity of working with some of the members from your organization. So
Hmm.
we're going to take a look at your work. For those of you who are new to this platform, I enjoy finding quotes to go with the art, and so I had such a good time looking for them. Sometimes
Nice,
it takes me hours
nice, nice.
to just find the right thing. So And then if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And I promise we will read each and every one of them so that Sister Aleathia can answer the questions. Okay?
Awesome.
All
Awesome.
right, so here we go. I'm going to share the screen now. Okay. Oops. Okay. And there's that beautiful
Ah, nice.
flyer. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. To say that one waits a lifetime for his or her soulmate to come around is a paradox. People eventually get sick of waiting, take a chance on someone, and by the art of commitment, become soulmates, which takes a lifetime to perfect.
Well said.
Yeah. And
Well said.
and folks are probably saying, like, why this, for those who don't know,
I know the lead in. That was a perfect segue, by the way.
why are you talking about marriage when we're talking about art? But
mm.
you married your art.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yes.
Let's put this down the
Yes, that was January 25th, 2020, just before the world shut down and shift. That was my and this is something that had been in the making for a lifetime, really, because my 5 and 6 year old self in that Catholic school in East Harlem, when we were doing our first Holy Communion, the priest had said, he was talking about vows, and I had to ask him, what's the difference between a promise and a vow. And he was talking about how a vow is something you make between you and God. And so when we did our first Holy Communion in all this white regalia, and I'm thinking, wow, if I live to be 50 and I'm still committed to my art, I want to marry my art. So I knew this from that long ago. Manifesting it was a journey, and then fruition hit when I said, well, there's not a whole lot of women in the arts, and I don't care what culture, that have an uninterrupted journey where they didn't have to stop because they were caretakers of um, an elder, or getting married, or becoming a parent. So the average woman, I found, has either a 3 month or a 3 year hiccup in her art career, and most men, even the impoverished ones in the arts, had always a woman in history to help shelter him through the storm. So I have no children. I took the vow and I made this commitment uninterrupted to always be making art, producing art, connecting to art, celebrating art, birthing art. So what better way than to um, align with that commitment, which was that the assignment I was given to come here and be an artist has been uninterrupted for 50 plus years.
Wow. And you had at this wedding, you had you had a minister.
Yep, she's right there in the background. You see her with the red book. That was where she did the vows. It was people crying, men and women. She started ringing these bells, and she asked me in an interview during the preliminary of this, give me 3 dates that are significant in your life. She had everybody humming to the amount of numbers that those dates equated to as she rang the bell and had some incense, but it was just beyond what I expected. And even the men were like, I was crying and I didn't know why. I had tears rolling down my face. It was powerful. And by the way, that canvas dress that I have on that has all that paint on it, I made that from my futon mattress cover because I had to get rid of it when I needed to make room to make my art in my home. And my neighbor had given me this futon and she wanted me to have something to sleep on formally, and I would sleep on whatever I propped up at the time because my art was the space taker. And I said, what better way to celebrate what she gave me, not to throw it out, but to use it in something profoundly that's going to be always recycled into some profound conversation. So all the color on it has been painted on for about 15 years by the public from here to Las Vegas, and only the things in black were the things that I put on that. So that's a community effort because my art has been a community journey.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Hmm.
Wow. And here you are. I love
So
that.
So it's actually 5+ decades of my work on those walls in that space. I wanted to put my first oil painting, my first illustration, and the journey goes around from elementary to college and to the present time. So that was a retrospective as well as an art wedding.
Nice, nice, nice.
Hmm.
Wow. It has been my personal experience that as I allow the painting to speak, I become lost. It is delicious and at the same time frightening. The best ones to me have a life of their own.
Mm.
This
Wow.
quote is by Luther Evan from Elemental, the book
Hmm.
Elemental, The Power of Illuminated Love.
Mm. That's powerful. Wow.
So I want to show some of your
Ah.
paintings. So let's,
Nice. This is the most recent one. This
I
is from the,
know.
you go full circle. That's well, this piece is part of a multi-layered performance and visual arts grant that I got for the City Arts Grants cycle this past October. So what you can't see on the photograph of the painting is all of that orangish color is actually a metallic copper, because I wanted to really talk about the metallic energy pulling from copper that exists in us as humans, but also that's out in the world that we live, because there's something pulling about it, the vibrational energy underneath the layers of paint surrounding that rear view mirror glass at the bottom is a Yoruba book that I dismantled. I got from Materials for the Arts. When I was dismantling it, I started reading the pages and realized that most of the artists, or at least half of the artists in that book, were friends of mine. So I didn't even realize that when I selected the book to dismantle, that it had all this spiritual, movement in it in and of itself. But I'm taking you on this journey about time. So she's got an hourglass on her back, and she's floating on an ancient time device. I took some of the elements off of it and put my own touches onto it. But a lot of the work that I was doing, and if you look, there's melting clocks all in the sky, and there's one on the branch. So I'm talking about time. And one of the things that really is evident and apparent with artists is we never have enough time. And then I always ask the question, if time were a dollar, what would you choose? Make time or spend time? So I was looking at time, especially in this pandemic. Time has moved in a whole different realm. But for those of us who are creatives, we're already in isolation to create. So we're using time in a way profoundly we hadn't. So there's all kinds of messages that I put into that. The colors are stories. So the piece is called Sanvi. She is a Hindu goddess, wealth and prosperity, and not just materialistically, but spiritually. So there's all these
Nice.
layers.
Wow. And you know, the copper, and someone out there, I know Roberta's out there and Cheryl Thomas is out there. Tell me if I'm not right, but copper is one of Oya's elements, I believe.
Mm,
And
mm,
and the story that you're telling and just all of those kinds of things, because I've been doing a lot of work
mm,
around Oya
mm-hmm,
recently.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, this piece is like a culmination
mm-hmm,
of your hand stroke,
mm-hmm,
your the colors that you've used.
mm-hmm,
We're going to look at some of the figures that you create, and I see that in her body,
mm-hmm.
that same movement.
Yes.
Um, and it's like, and when you talk about community,
Mm-hmm,
you definitely build community in everything that you create.
mm-hmm,
Like all the pieces that we're going to look at,
mm-hmm.
it's a community
Right.
within the community,
Yes. Yes.
which is the
Yes.
painting. And I
Yes.
wanted to, you're left handed
Yes.
as well.
But I paint with my right hand when I need a steadier hand. So even on this piece,
Wow.
like sometimes when I'd be late at night and I'm exhausted working on it, I would switch hands. I don't think about it until someone asked that question. My father had this thing about being left-handed was taboo and evil, so he wouldn't let me use my left hand when I'd be out with him. My mother thought left-handed was creative and she wished she was left-handed, so she would encourage the left hand. So depending on the parent I was around, that's the hand I use. Even to this day, like when I'm cooking, my right hand is steadier at pouring my tea, and so I'm ambidextrous. I don't,
That's
I
so
use my right
fascinating.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right-handed,
Mm.
but I my left hand is my stronger hand.
See, see.
So I open all the jars. I open
Mm-hmm.
jars with my left hand. I
Mm-hmm.
play the shakeré left-handed.
Yes.
So anyway,
So you're left-handed minded. If that's a thing.
yeah. Uh-huh.
when
Right.
when when I was in music and art in one of my drawing classes, the teacher discovered that there were 19 left-handed folks out of 27 in the class.
That's wonderful. And I think it probably had to do with um because I know you're younger than I am, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it had to do with parents allowing their children at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And or
Yeah.
the teacher, because I believe I was left-handed and we got switched
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
to being right-handed because it was
Right.
easier for the teacher to teach right-handed
Right. Right.
children if they were right-handed. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's how it was back in the day, but now
But
it's
it's in my DNA too. My mother discovered that every second born on my father's side for at least 10 generations is left-handed. So every second born left-handed for 10 generations, that's a thing. And then I'm learning there's a lot of artists on my father's side that I didn't know, I didn't grow up with.
nice. Wow. Mm.
Uh,
So the other thing about your work, and I'm gonna get some other things out of you that I notice, and I'm an art
okay.
historian, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I notice that um, your work takes us on a walkabout,
Mm-hmm. On purpose.
and I see a lot of um, I get it like an Australian vibe or like an ancient
Aborigine.
Aboriginal, right? An
Mm-hmm.
Aboriginal vibe
Mm-hmm.
from your work a lot. The
Mm-hmm.
strokes, the
Mm-hmm.
dots,
Mm-hmm.
the pointillism,
Mm-hmm.
as they call it
Mm-hmm. In the
in
art
art
world.
schools, right?
Yeah.
In that art world. Um, so does
Mm-hmm.
that have? Is there anything about that
Absolutely,
is
absolutely.
connected?
It's coding, is a vibrational coding. If we had to speak without words, how would we transmit in intelligence on texture and color and movement, and how would we tell information and direction and journeys without words? Because remember, before there was an alphabet or a language, there was the visual image as the story of the day. So I'm always channeling those vibrational energies. That's why I said to you the other day when we were on the phone, sometimes when I'm working, I go into a lot of sleeping meditation and a lot of, vibrational meditation where I have to be still and around silence so that I could pick up what I'm hearing and seeing. Because sometimes these images just appear on the surface of what I'm working on without me actually doing a sketch, they just start appearing. So when I surrender to that, that's
Mhm.
what I'm picking up the texture of. And I have a thing about texture, both the things I like and don't like about texture, from the palette of my tongue to the palette of what I'm using my paint for. So for me, texture is communication. What texture is telling you a direction to go in or to steer away from. So it's information.
Do you have any connection to the visual aspects of Afrofuturism? Does that ever come up or not?
I struggle with that word Afrofuturism.
Okay.
and I
Okay.
and I guess because When I look at Sankofa and you talk about the past and the present and the future, that's always been a paradigm that's existed in three intervals. When you use the word futurism, it's almost like you're commercializing the intensity and integrity of what the future really is and what the journey and pathway and that portal to ahead. You know, it's a pathway of a place in a realm ahead that sometimes people have a vision and don't have clarity. Sometimes people have a knowing. So for me, I struggle with the word, but in terms of the idea, there's definitely a futurism because there've been works that I've created that I didn't know where it was coming from, and then down the road I saw those images in real life, and I didn't know that that was something I was channeling.
Mm.
So there is a future
Yeah, and
ahead.
you're right, and I can agree with you in what you're saying because the future is now
Right. Right.
as
Every time
well.
you say it, every time you say it, is now, is now, is now.
Right.
It echoes.
Talk a little bit about the number of images that you put in a piece. There's it's is it
I count, and it really does happen to land on a particular number. I even play a game. There was a piece that you had on the screen a moment ago called Color in Time. There are 17 silhouette figures on it, and that piece is about
let's
eight
go
feet
back to
by
that.
10 feet.
This one?
No, go back a little more. Keep going. That one. You go forward one. That. So this piece is part of that art curian mural canvas we did. It was like 40 artists, and we did it at the drug prevention over by the Manhattan Bridge in the Brooklyn side.
That's
So
right.
this piece is on canvas. You see the little black silhouettes that's floating around in different parts.
Yes,
There are 17 of them on there. I've only had 11 or 12 people that found all 17 of them. I'm born on the 17th day of November, so I put numbers in categories of my life pattern. And so I put that on there and deliberately hid it in some places, and some places made it obvious. But it was really just to make it a playful, whimsical way to engage people to really look deeper at the work. And what happens is because of the patterns, it throws the psyche off. So you get engrossed in the patterns and the colors. So you forget the count halfway through your number. So I had intentionally did this piece with the hopes that it would go in the lobby of a children's hospital because I wanted to bring the 5-year-old side of me out whimsically, putting those bold primary colors in a vibrational way that was fun in spite of being in a place of healing that's sometimes dark and drab. So, I wanted it to be something that, okay, if you come to a hospital for visits often, now you can engage in this because it has an interactive part. But when I had it in my studio at Chashama, that became the game of the day. Every time people came in my studio, is like trying to find all of the figures in there. But I literally counted how many of those bars that are strokes because those numbers are also vibrational messages. So everything on it, I almost counted all of these until I got a headache and I was like, all right, stop. So
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, nice. I love that. That's so important. Yeah, when art tugs at your heartstrings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like each one of these is like you looking at a photo album and you seeing your past and you seeing all the memories that come. There
Mhm.
are other stories that I've never told, and there are some stories that other people have told me when they've looked at my work. So I get a different energy pull every time I
Mhm.
see something else show up.
Mhm. Yeah, really nice.
Thank you. A lot of these also are a mixture of live art pieces and works that have been influenced by music because a lot of times I'm listening to music when I'm working. So there are sometimes I'm purposely using the music. Like on this piece, in that background, I hand crumpled the paper bunches of times so it's kind of got the texture of like a leather, but I actually took a 000 pen and did those spirals one at a time, all in the background of this crumpled paper. So it can add the texture on it. So you see it in person in a way that you won't see it on the screen here now. But yes, there's a journey. Like this was about the athlete and the dancer and the spiritual nature of motion and movement. I've had a friend years ago say to me, "Your work has always got movement in it," and I was like, "Yeah, there's something about motion that I've always been attracted to, in one way or the other." So just like music to me is sound motion. So the stroke of a pen or a brush or the torn edges is movement
Mm,
and
mm,
energy. That's how we transition, is we move through things.
yeah. One thing I love about your process is the framing.
Mhm.
You frame your own work.
Yes. Because that's the packaging that's telling the story. And I look at it as the frame is like a portal. You know, when you're on a ship and it has those portals that you look through, it belongs in its portals so that it can finish telling the story. So I actually got trained and apprenticed under this master framer. When I lived in Riverdale, there was a gallery frame shop around the corner, and he would put the frames out on the sidewalk at night when he was discarding them. And one day he set me up and put a beautiful frame out there to see who was going to come get it. And he flipped the lights on. I was like, I knew there was an artist in the neighborhood. And he brought me into the gallery, and he literally took me behind the scenes and taught me the art of framing. And he said, because this way you won't have to put limits on how you present your work. So I was able to work he was a older German guy, was very much about craft and was very meticulous, taught me to the point where even if I dropped and broke a frame, the glass would blow out. Like this man was a genius on engineering how the framing process is. So I learned from him.
Mm. Did you play with dolls when you were young?
I did for a short while, and always because I had such an imagination, I would have these characters that I would do. I had more stuffed animals than dolls, and more of my dolls set up on shelves, but I played more with my stuffed animals than anything. They had character for me in a different way. This is a live art piece too, which I did this whole piece without a paintbrush. So this was all done with a roller, a brayer, and my fingers. So all of the heads and all of those ovals are my fingerprints. And the piece is called Community, and that's what I said. Me touching the paint, the canvas, the paper is me touching the community. So
This
that's
is
why I did it
beautiful.
with no brush. I wanted to touch the work.
What is the
And then
purpose?
actually the original was owned by someone in Harlem too, which is kind of funny.
Oh, nice. What is the purpose of your use of black paint?
So the black paint, which is ironic, my first remembrance of art in my environment was the church stained glass windows. And I would sit at St. Lucy's and be amazed by these primary colors of the glass framed by all these black outlines. So in a sense, I'm still replicating the stained glass window with the black outlines that was done with lead once upon a time. And I had this fascination with using black as the frame to illuminate the color, because I always play with color like children play with toys. So for me, color is a play thing and a meditational healing thing, and the black is just framing it so that you can illuminate and see
Nice, nice, beautiful.
it. Abstract faces.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny when I see pieces from my past, because pattern has always been something that's been my journey from as far back as I go. And one of my mother's former bosses owns the original to this. And it's really, again, me telepathically giving you a vibrational story through the texture of those dots, because those dots are sound and motion and their rhythm.
Nice, nice. Where duality divides things into black or white, polarity includes the full spectrum. It is all inclusive. Duality takes the spectrum and draws a line somewhere, cutting it in half. Duality really only exists in the mind. It does not directly relate to the physical realm.
Mm. Wow.
Lawrence Galian.
Mm. Powerful. Mm. This was part of a 10-piece series I did at my studio at Chishama. One night, I challenged myself to do 10 paintings in one night before the moon left. And I put on all kinds of jazz music and just let it take me wherever it took me. So, this was the first one in that series called What's Next. And it literally was because I was like, all right, what's next after I did this? And what's next on this journey, because the tempo of the music kept changing too, because I had some old school jazz and some contemporary jazz and some fusion, and it literally every time the jazz changed and I didn't know what was coming next, I changed the page. This was the second one in that, and this was called Figure It Out. Every single line on there is a figure.
Wow, I see it.
See, figure it out.
Ah,
Got you.
oh, yes, yes. My goodness.
hmm And this is the third one in that, called Conversation. Even the simplest line is a conversation based on its direction, whether it's horizontal, vertical, whether it's moving and curving, whether it's thin or thick, lines are conversations.
Wow. Do you believe that you lived another life?
Oh, I have lived many lives, and I used to have these weird dreams as a child where I would transport into a different time and see myself, see tragic things happen, and have premonitions of things. Like, it doesn't happen as much now because I've shifted it. This is part of that series too, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have lived other lifetimes
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
clearly, like without question. As clear as I'm talking to you, I've traveled in my sleep to those other times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing so much work from things that are from other cultures
hmm Well,
and colors.
I did Japanese brush painting also in school, and then I was very close with this young lady when I was in my sophomore year at SVA. She was from Taiwan. She had just come to New York or to the United States like 3 months before she came to the school, and we used to play ping pong every day as our outlet over at FIT, and all of her friends were in FIT. So I love the simplicity of her work, and it was very simple and powerful, but unapologetic. And when I took the brush painting class, a lot of from the teacher to a lot of the students in the class was saying it's like you got a soul from another culture, because it really spoke to me in a whole profound other way.
What form do you what form of black do you use? Do you use ink? Are you is
Both, everything, because in these I used acrylic, but I when I was doing brush painting, it was definitely I still use ink, and I still have my bamboo brushes, and I still have all kinds of inks that I in fact I have. Do you remember James Best, the artist? He passed away some years ago. He was part of a collective that I had formed in early 2000s, and when he was transitioning, he came to my house one day with a box full of inks and brushes, sable hair and bamboo brushes, and he was like, I couldn't think of anybody better to give this to, who really can appreciate the old school world of really hands-on art. And because I had such an affinity to the stroke and to even the white space is part of the work for me.
Mhm.
So it is very much a passion I have
Love it.
still dear.
Love it. There is a tray full of glass sundae dishes filled with brightly colored ice cream: strawberry, pistachio, black raspberry, pink, green, and purple. I like the colors next to each other and wonder what kind of impossible things I can draw about ice cream. Maybe melting rivers of it, and a
Mm.
man with a cone-shaped head sitting in a banana split dish, rowing with a spoon. So you know what work is coming next, right?
I started laughing because I'm like, I love these segues. Like nobody else is understanding the inside joke but you
Right?
and me right now.
Yes.
But I was like,
So
wow.
this is
I
Linda
want to
Hillary.
have these to do some other work from, if you don't mind. This is
Of
taking me on
course,
another
of
journey.
course, of course. So we're looking at your banana
Mm-hmm.
paper. Is it banana? It's made from
Yeah,
banana
every
leaf.
one of yep, all of them are pulped 100% from the banana leaf, and from different countries, from Costa Rica, from the Philippines. I picked different places on purpose because the texture had a different thing. I did handmade papers in school, and I had just such a respect for how much work goes into that process in and of itself. But the texture of handmade papers is profoundly a piece of art in itself. So, like on this, I wanted the background between those patterns to also be the paper in its natural sense, and the underneath that tablecloth, that is the actual paper in its natural sense. The fibers are still very present on the surface of those pieces. So I'm telling a story within a story. You see the painting on the wall in the background, it
Mhm.
tells you what the next, with the piece you just had on pedicure, that's the painting in the background. So each one takes you to the next painting, and the last one takes you back to the first one.
Yeah, and
So
I
there
don't
are
know. I
seven.
don't know if I have the. I don't know if I have all of them or have them in
I
order.
might have. Nah, it doesn't matter because I didn't mean for it to have to stay in its order. I just tell the story so people understand what they're looking at. So
Nice.
this piece in the background is what you just came off of. That other piece was Sunday Supper. That's on the piece in the background. So I wanted them. This is the reflection, the one you just came from. So each of them are telling you a sneak preview of what the next one is. So the story continues, and there are seven, like 7 days. So the story ends and begins. This is the first one in the journey. That's why it doesn't have a background, because the story begins there. But the last one, called Finale, has this piece in the background.
Nice. Nice.
And I'm using banana paper because I'm saying, like, bananas growing a bunch together, families growing a bunch.
Wow. Okay. And then I have nature and art and poetry. And if that is not enough, what is enough? Now, do you know what I'm talking about?
um, I'm assuming the photography in my nature
No,
pictures.
no,
Oh, okay.
no. I don't think I have any photography in here.
Okay. Okay. So there you
Burlap,
go. It's one of my,
burlap.
oh, because of the texture. Okay.
And it's a
Yes.
natural fiber,
Yes, yes. I
which
have
I
an
love your
obsession.
burlap work.
Oh
And I think this
man.
is how I first got to know you.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Um,
obsessed with burlap. I love
yes,
deconstructing it and building it back up and doing so many things with it, and it just takes me on a whole other journey. This was the piece that I did in 2018 when I was preparing to do the Art Basel. I had just come back from Paris and London doing a show in the UK, and I had a temporary studio at Chishama, and I had exactly a month to produce work and take it to Miami the following month. So I literally was painting this to the night before I had to pack my studio and get on the road and drive to Florida. Yeah, but this is called Supreme Energy. And you see the Adinkra symbols on it, which this is the segue to my AOA residency that I'm about to start, where I'm using Adinkra symbols and Underground Railroad symbols in a storytelling way, and I'm adding embellishments to it. So you see the faces on these, and you see that Kina May sniffing sort of the hand of Om. The vibrational energy is really how they syncopate. All these spiritual energies and entities are in an alignment with each other, no matter where they come from. And on the hand that's in that meditational pose is another Adinkra symbol called energy. So the one that looks like a portal on the right side of that white figure under that fish is harmony. I'm looking at balance and harmony and energy, and there's so many layers to this telling a story.
nice, nice. Wow. Now I'm seeing the faces in the Genie May and the
Mm-hmm.
hand.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yellow drop. So now this is a story within a story, because remember the futon mattress that I said earlier in the canvas dress for the art wedding. I took the wood slats. There's no part of that futon that I discarded. I used every single thing of it. So this burlap is stretched over the slats from that futon mattress. So I always say, where your eyes now rest, my soul used to rest, because I slept on that futon. So
Wow, nice,
so I'm always looking at how these stories tell more stories on top of stories. And the some of these figures are spiritual energies, and some of these are of the flesh. So that's why some are with black face and some with color face.
nice.
So that's the close up on that other piece where that hand of Om. So, and you see that the drops above the hand is really energy in motion. So the
Mm,
vibrational energy that come off of your hand when you're doing that is ascending other energy up.
nice, nice. And this is where I met you
Yeah, that
during
because
this
that's
piece.
yeah. So one of my friends, she has a shop in Brooklyn called Heavenly Crumbs. She has a shaved head, and this was way before I ever started Unveiled Unlocked. So one year for her birthday, we were at Frank's Lounge in Brooklyn. She stretched across the couch, had me take pictures of her, and the three figures in the back of the couch. My friend Cisco, who's transitioned about 5 6 years now, he went to music and art, and he was the first person I started doing live art with right after 9/11 happened. So he was the figure that I'm representing with that horn in the middle, and the two musicians on the outside. They were serenading me at Creole on 118th and 3rd Avenue at one of my birthdays. So it was her birthday, my birthday, and the birth of all of these energies. I had intentionally said I was going to one day do a painting like those two on the sides and put it on the wall on the exterior of this painting. That just hasn't happened yet, but this is called Play It Again, Man.
Yeah, nice. In every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is the power to do it.
Mm.
M. Williamson. So I know you do a lot of community work, and these are some of your murals.
So this is a three-wall mural that I did on 146 and 7th Avenue in 2017. So the hands is the front of one section of that on the exterior of Infinity Mennonite Church, right across the street from the bus depot. And where you see me standing in front of is the longer wall, which is the me doing this whole black and white piece, and it transitions to color. And then the figure on the right side, where you see them with the protest signs. I was doing a 6-week program with Harlem Village Academy High School, and it was supposed to be a community mural that they helped out with. The mural got moved 3 different times. There's 3 different locations before it actually landed here. So the students were supposed to put their input in on what they wanted to see happening. If you see on that book at the bottom of the wall, I've been to Harlem. It's an actual real song you can look up on YouTube that was written about Harlem. I really wanted all of these elements to come together, but I had the students at Harlem Village Academy. I said, if you had to make a protest sign with your voice right now, here you are today, what would you put as the message on it? So I took pictures of them posing with signs up, and them having to hold it for long periods of time till their hands were getting exhausted, and I wanted them to really feel what a protest feels like. And so what does your voice feel like when you get to actually use it? And so there was stories within stories, but I'm standing in front of the piece that's that black and white, and it's got a Underground Railroad wagon wheel that James Baldwin is tossing in his hand. So it's really talking about fleeing to freedom. So all of the symbols all throughout the 3 walls have, you see the monkey wrench on the wall with the 2 hands in the background, and and the flying geese is on one of the other walls. So all throughout, I used all these symbols, but the colors were also part of the messages as well about freedom and fleeing and all of that. So I was telling a story within the story. In fact, this mural got approved not because of the images. Before I even had the first sketch done for this wall, because it kept getting changed to locations and the dynamics kept getting changed, I wrote a story about this. And the pastor of that, Al Taylor, he read the story and said, after reading that, I had to have whoever's brain wrote that put whatever on the wall. So that's how that came.
Nice, very nice. And then you have a coloring book
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
line,
Mm-hmm. It's
and
an
I
unbound coloring book.
yeah, and I know it's even though you children can, of course, partake in the images.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of adults.
I designed it for adults. When my father was in a nursing home, and I had actually in 1980 86, I had started talking about wanting to do a coloring book, and people thought I was crazy. I have a box full of these ideas that I put together that I said one day I'll come back to. And then full circle, I saw this English woman do some illustrations of a garden from her house, and she sold out 3 times over. And I was like, all right, maybe now is the time to do it. So I went to see my father in the nursing home. He had a traumatic brain injury, and I pulled one of the copy pages from off the table and did this drawing of a female with a butterfly kind of presence to her. And I asked the community person who was bringing some colored pencils into the room, can I use them with my father? And for 2 hours he colored, and it looked like a blend of a watercolor painting and a pastel. So one of the nurses comes over and said, if I hadn't seen him for myself, I would have never believed you didn't do all of this work. So something triggered in me, like there's something happening, that this part of his brain is not damaged, and he still was able to execute all that creative energy. And so I said, the stress melting of adults being able to play with color is healing. So I put these images together, and that drawing that I did with him is actually in that pack as well. I took some Adinkra symbols and embellished them. And I wanted there to be all kinds of messages, but I also wanted people to add their own designs to some of the pages. So if you take a Sharpie, you can add other details to it. And I do these coloring sessions and workshops all over the place, or people just buy the sets, and it's kind of like a grab and go. So families use them, individuals use them. And I've had, especially in this pandemic, last year, at the height, people were buying them because they were homebound. So they got tired of watching TV and being on the internet. So this gave them another outlet to flush their brain and,
Mhm.
rejuvenate their organs. Because I always tell people, when you're coloring, it's not just an escape on one level. You're getting rid of 5 pounds of weight, but that's the equivalent of stress. 5 pounds of weight lifted, that's why you feel lighter when you get a massage. So there is really something physically happening when you release those toxins.
Nice. And then these are some of the folks.
Mm-hmm. So that the kids in the orange is from Harlem Village Academy. That was the workshops I was giving them, sort of a build up towards the mural project. And the other two are paint and sips that I've done since this pandemic has been going on. You know, is we had music. I had Fredericks was a friend of mine whose birthday the same day as mine. He was playing guitar live while they were doing the painting on the top left, and then the piece to the right, I was doing something with seniors and the police department. So we had cops on one half of the table and seniors on the other half in the northwest Bronx, and did sort of a paint and sip. And I had a playlist of music that DJ Masai did for me. And I played music, and the officer said, we were only gonna do a cameo for like 15 minutes, but this was so relaxing, and that playlist was sick. So they stayed to the very end, had a ball, even helped clean up afterwards. Like, wow, I can't believe what I did. So
Oh,
that's the beauty in being able to share the blessing of, like that. I look at the art as a ministry too. When you feel such a powerful lift from something that you get to do all the time, and then to do it with
mhm.
other people and they get that same feeling, you then begin to see that it's not just me. I'm not just selfishly connected to this art thing. It really is a thing.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So we're going to look at some of the comment, well, all of the comments, and see if there's any questions that we didn't cover.
Awesome.
And I know folks, let me go up. Hold on. Let me see. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see. Those are the earlier ones that you've answered. Let's see. Um, all right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, people are telling where they're from. And I'll give you a copy of the chat as well.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, hold on. Okay. I understand that Aleathia, I entered the world an artist, but I didn't accept that until many years later. That's from Vanessa Green.
Mm.
Oh, and Brenda Harris said that she's an M&A graduate class of
Ah,
67.
oh wow. I'm 81. Wow. I love it when I hear all these different times.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Wow.
Welcome.
Wow. Okay. Abimbola asked, what does SVA stand for? And it's School of Visual Arts.
Hmm.
Um, Myra Coy says, I have seen the cards and love them. Juan said,
Yes, she came to the gallery too. Yeah.
he was talking about one of the pieces. I don't know which one he said was so weird, but he loves it. He loved it. Um, oh, so Roberta said correct. It must have been when I was talking about the copper.
Oh, okay.
Oya.
Mm-hmm.
Is the sun in the first piece a balloon?
No, I likened it to be in your imagination either a moon or a sun, because copper can take on either attribute because it attracts that energy.
Okay. And she says also, you're truly ambidextrous. No wonder your art is so full of and complex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I had
Yeah.
to learn how to embrace it, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. And Roberta also says, my sister was naturally left-handed and our dad made her switch for all the
Mm,
reasons mentioned.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sign of the times.
Yeah. Wow. Nefertiti says the date. I have only found 14 of the figures. Oh, to date. See, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at this and I'm going to pull up the image and pause it and I'm going to find,
I love it. I
no
love
me.
it. I love it. The
Yeah. So now
competition
I got
is
to go back.
on.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I'm going to find it. I'm
Yes.
going to circle each one. Yep. And I'm going to send it to you.
I love it. I love it. And I said I envisioned seeing that happen while people were in a lobby of a hospital or something, standing there and doing a count and kind of standing over each other, kind of like you do when you're playing a game. So I love it.
Wow.
I did my
Yeah.
job.
Myra says, I love that you incorporate symbols that speak to energy.
Mm-hmm. All
Nice.
day. All
Brenda, were either of your parents artists? Do you choose your medium based on, well, that's one question. And then do you choose your medium based on the image you desire to express, or does the medium express itself to you based upon the images you're inspired to create?
So my father worked for Honeywell, but he was a draftsman. So there's that art side that he probably never fully embraced because there, like I said, I found out as I got older, there was a lot of artists on my father's side that
Mhm.
I didn't know. So I'm sure there's a lot of creatives that, for whatever reason, the times we were in or just the conditions of where you lived, you didn't get to really explore that until like now, these past 2 decades. And when it comes down to me, I let the story come off of the texture. So I won't even start on a surface until it starts speaking to me. So I can't, I'm not just painting on canvas. It's the story that's the canvas. It's the story that's the paper. So the what I'm painting on or creating something on or drawing on or even some three-dimensional, because I do sculptures. I just don't do a lot of them because I don't have places to store them. the texture that it's on is part of the story as much as the image that you're seeing.
Nice, nice. Nefertiti also says, are those morsels of energies or moons across the top of the art piece using the burlap?
Their energy. So everything in that piece was talking about how energy moves, ascends, shifts. Yeah, it's energy.
Okay. Hi, Gwendolyn Aqui Brooks from Florida. This has been a fabulous journey with Sister Aleathia. Thank you
Oh,
so much for allowing us to experience. Very nice. And I interviewed Gwendolyn. I don't know if you got to see her interview, which is a fabulous one too.
I might have. That name sounds familiar. When you said
Yeah.
it, I thought that was one of the ones that I did see. Sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
Nefertiti said phenomenal images and photos of Aleathia in action. Nice.
Thank
Roberta
you.
Jones says, will you add contact information to the chat? Do you know how to do that?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Brenda says, can you place the senior workshops in the chat box, please?
I mean, in this pandemic, they are basically when I get hired to do some things now. It's not like before. I had ongoing workshops that I could invite people to. Like this summer, I did a series with Jazzmobile, or some. I have another project that's sort of on the shelf right now called Reassign Your Mind, and it's going to be painting on some shirts. Um, and that's a whole other thing. I'm just waiting for the logistics to happen. So I'll put my email on here so you can um, be on my mailing list and see how to connect.
Yeah. And Alethea is on Instagram as well.
Hmm.
So please follow her and follow me um, if you're not following us, and we'll follow you back. PJ Jones says, yes, I am speechless.
Uh,
And then I think you just answered the question for Roberta. Do you still offer workshops?
mm-hmm.
Juan says, what about your storytelling?
Thank you, Juan. Juan is actually the person I worked with NYCHA programs, um, doing the visual art program. So the storytelling on and off the canvas that I had mentioned to you earlier was I do storytelling. I had started doing some things with Moth storytelling. So I had been featured on a couple of their NPR and some of the live stages before the pandemic hit. Even part of my grant project with City Arts, I was doing storytelling poetically to music. So it's morphing into that other arena, and I'm working on another production right now. I'm putting it out into the universe because I want it to happen at the Apollo Lounge. I've been actually in the behind scenes talking about that to folks. So the idea is taking the poetic journey and orating it.
Nice, nice, nice.
But I challenged myself last year to the year before to write 51 poems in a year. So I'm editing some of them, and I did that in a 12-month period. So I have always written, but I never showed it to the world because I didn't want people to critique it. And then I started little by little through storytelling, poetically doing it on stages.
Okay. Sandra says, I have to signify, great presentation. Really enjoyed being walked through your work. Love the art, the quotes, and the questions. Thank you.
Yes, yes,
Sign
for
off, not
sure.
signify. Oh, sign off. Thank you for being here. Roberta Jones, I'm blown away by your talent and thoughtful approach. Nefertiti says the quotes are amazing. Thank you. Brenda says, I think I enjoyed the subtext to your art as much as your art.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
PJ Jones says, to have you talk us through each piece is to put your very breath in the piece.
Oh,
That's
wow.
so beautiful.
That is well said.
Brenda said, thank you, Myra, for presenting Alethia's work. Great presentation and even better questions. Thank you. Thank you. Juan says it's like a Where's Waldo. I counted five before the picture change. I loved Where's Waldo.
I did too. That's where
Yep.
some of that comes from. Like that's why I said the 5-year-old in me. That's where the elements come from. You never know where something you've been influenced was gonna show up in your work in a whole different way. But that's the element of it. That I'm so a fan
Right.
of where in the world is Waldo. What's the other girl's name? There was another
I
girl
don't
that
remember, but I know I used to buy them for buy the puzzles and everything for my
mm-hmm.
children,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it. I loved it just as
Yes.
much as they did.
Yes.
What size are the banana leaf pieces?
So the originals are 30 by 40. I have lithographs and G clays that are 18 by 24. And I sell them framed so that you can just
Do
put
you
it on
still
your
have any of
wall.
the originals?
All of the originals I still have. All that.
Okay,
And no, I think one of the originals I sold. So 6 of them I still have.
okay. Nefertiti said, for your information, I was counting and recounting the figurines in that piece while I was on the screen. Felt like a journey into Alethia's limitless imagination, a lovely trip.
Nice. Thank you.
Vanessa said, this has been one of the best artist interviews in your series.
Oh,
Oh, that's nice.
thank you so
Alethea,
much.
okay, you put that there. Aleathia Brown. It's Aleathia B at msn.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Myra, you did an awesome presentation with this interview, so gentle and sensitive. Humbly, thank you. Oh, thank you so
Very
much.
much so. They're saying everything I was thinking because I said I knew this would be an enjoyable journey and it wouldn't be the typical questions because I know you. So I literally couldn't go out of the house or do anything else because I was like, I'm excited.
Oh, thank you. Oh my
So
gosh, we're still getting questions. Okay, hang in there with us, okay? We may go a little over. And if you have to leave, you can catch it on the rerun because I do upload it to my website, and Alethea will have a link as well.
awesome.
Um, oh, Carmen San Diego.
Yes, I said it was a
I remember.
female. I
Yes,
couldn't
I
think of
love
the
that.
name.
That
Yes,
sister, the sister.
Carmen
What was her
San
name? What's her
Diego.
name? The one
Oh
who
my
played
goodness.
the elder, the sister who played the detective, or the
Oh,
wasn't that was something.
I can't think of the name.
Anyway, well, it'll come to us.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Carmen San Diego? Okay. I
Yes.
love highlights for children, hidden pictures as a child. Yep, that was good as well.
I did
And
that.
Nefertiti says, "Thank you, Juan." Yes, Carmen San Diego. So, Alicia, what's next?
Oh, so what's happening right now is do you remember the film and the exhibit some years ago called I'll Make Me a World?
Yes.
Wow. So that is really what I connected on the academic level as the launch pad for my artists in residency. So we're in a pandemic. Um I'm doing my social resistance about having to conform to institutions selecting me like I'm on an auction block to say if I'm qualified to be an artist in residence with their organization. So I decided to have my own residency and I've dismantled parts of my bedroom, put some of it in 2 different storage units, and I'm still working on that as we speak. So the idea is to create a body of work to exhibit the following year. But that series that I'm starting with is me embellishing the Underground Railroad symbols with the Adinkra symbols. I've done so much research. I got folders of things and all kinds of compiled things with materials. I got a piece of a grant from this one and a donation from that one. So I'm gonna put up a link on my pages, and I will, like a fly on the wall, let people late at night while I'm in my art lab watch me working on pieces or struggling through making those pieces happen. And instead of like a residency where you have people come to you because you can see me doing it online, you'll be able to watch the work develop. So I
Nice,
during the
nice.
holidays we'll have this AOA residency. So the AOA residency stands for Alethia's Original Artworks. And I'm using that footage from the film. So one of the things I want to do is ask for permission to show that film documentary. You can go on YouTube and watch it as well, but it has all the Black excellence from before the Black Renaissance to since that, from athletes to artists and politicians, all of us who have pressed through in spite of isms, age, race, color, you name it. So
Can you type
I
that
want
in? Can you just type the title in and
uh-huh.
into the and
Hmm.
while you're doing that, Juan asks, how can we, let me see, how can we support you and your work? And then PJ Jones asks, yes, first fist held high, self artist in residence. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it's the AOA residency. I actually created a link on my Square Up. So I'm gonna post all of that once I start launching the introduction. I started doing little sneak previews of things, but once I put the information up and begin to let people start watching me in my lab doing the work, you'll see the links on all of my social media. You have my email on this now, so you can also ask to be on my mailing list for those who are not on social media. And then what I'll do is just send the link out, because it's an actual formal link where it's set up where you can make a donation anywhere from $10 or increments of $10. You just keep clicking the button for however much you want to donate, and that goes towards me. I'm also wanting to print a catalog for the body of works that I'm producing, and I want to do a coffee table book of some of the works that you showed today and beyond. I have hundreds of paintings that I want to put some of the stories like we did today into a coffee table book, so that money
nice,
goes
very
towards me
nice.
producing that.
And don't forget the calendars. You have calendars.
Oh, so
Thank you,
my
Juan. Thank you, Juan.
my supporters, because he just ordered some today. So my AOA calendars are set up in a way that they are affordable. I made them that way where they feature one piece of work on the top and the 12 months underneath on a one-page heavyweight paper. So the idea is when the year is up, cut the calendar off and frame the art to keep. Much like you have those small frames behind you where you can put a cluster on a wall like that. So I made it an affordable way for people to give them as gifts for the holidays, like art novelties or birthday gifts, or to clients for the holidays. Um, and I made it where they can gift themselves to start collecting, working on the small end, and build your way up. So what I've been doing lately is posting the calendars on my social media or texting or emailing people. What I also have is some of my work as framed prints that you can order, custom size framed art that you can do an installment arrangement if you want to start collecting work and supporting the journey.
Okay. Well, this has been fabulous. The last uh, couple of comments. Myra says, put me on your mailing list. Myra to be at gmail.com. I'll send you the chat. And then Lynette Baker says, wonderful interview. She is creative, knowledgeable, and very confident. Rightfully so. Great artist, Lynette Baker. Hi, Lynette. Nice to. Oh, okay. And there's the calendar, AOA calendars 2022. So they can reach out to you. Thank you
Yeah,
so.
email me and I'll send you what they look like, and you can select an order that way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aleathia. This has been a
I'm sending you
wonderful.
virtual hugs. I knew this was going to be
Yes.
exciting. Yay.
Yeah, I
Yay
know.
on you for being so passionate about what you're doing, because it transmits that this is why we had that synergy, because it wasn't just, for naught. This was really the energy of your spirit and your project and how this even came to fruition. So
Oh, thank
divinely, thank
you.
you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
Yeah, and for those of you, I this is something that's done every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday. I interview primarily women of color and some men during special occasions. It started during the lockdown. We were only supposed to do six. I was only going to do six of them, and I said I move on to something else, and folks said, "Nah, we want more." So
Mm-hmm.
there's, if you go to my website, which is myrahbrowngreen.com, and I spell my name with an H, there's about 30, almost 40, we're getting there, interviews. from
Mm-hmm.
women all and men all over the world. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you all. Thank you all for being here. I am so, so grateful. I'm grateful to you, Alethea. Keep doing what you do. I'm telling you, for someone who just has taken their art and shares it with the world intentionally is super special, and I am really
Oh,
grateful. So
I'm
I
a
know we'll be
child of
in
God.
touch, and I'll talk to everyone soon, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone,
All
and to
right,
be continued.
peace and love, everyone.
Awesome.
Take
Awesome
care.
job. Thank you.
So long, peace.